Jesus said, "The Spirit of the Lord will testify on my behalf, and you also are to testify."
The gospel text today can be found in your pew Bible on page 64 in the New Testament section. The Holy Gospel according to St. Luke. Glory to you, O Lord. Then they arrived at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. As he stepped out on land, a man of the city who had demons met him. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he did not live in a house, but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he fell down before him and shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many times it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles. But he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the wilds. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" He said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. They begged him not to order them to go back into the abyss. Now there on the hillside, a large herd of swine was feeding, and the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When the swineherd saw what had happened, they ran off and told it in the city and in the country. Then people came out to see what had happened, and when they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told them how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, for they were seized with a great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." So he went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. The Gospel of our Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Please be seated. In 2002, I took a job at a medium-sized Midwestern history museum, and at that time in my life, I could not have imagined a more perfect, ideal job for myself. I got to work on really cool projects that were personally interesting to me, and the people that I got to work with were clever, they were smart, they were funny, they were enthusiastic about their jobs, and with very few exceptions, we worked together wonderfully as a team. A well-oiled machine, you might say. The following summer, the president of the small liberal arts college that technically owned our museum dropped a bombshell on us by firing the museum's CEO and 27 board members in one fell swoop. And it was over a governance dispute. The details of that particular crisis aren't really important here, but I noticed two really interesting things come out of this 3.5-year conflict that emerged. The first one is that if I had thought before the governance crisis that our museum colleague group had worked really well together, I hadn't seen nothing yet. Once all the firings took place, we had not only a common goal, but also a common enemy. Anything that went wrong from that point on at the museum was somehow the college's fault. If we had a public program that wasn't well attended, well, it was the fault of those idiots at the college who failed to do the proper PR for the event. If the toilets overflowed, we blamed the idiots at the college once again for not putting in the proper plumbing in the first place. We spent about half our time coming up with new interesting, innovative programs, and the other half demonizing and blaming and scapegoating the people at the college. It was actually kind of mutual. This was a very public dispute, unfortunately. And so there was a lot of mutual demonization that took place. As I said before, after about 3.5 years, this governance dispute was settled in court, and we decided to separate. College over here, museum over here, never the twain shall meet. And that actually led to the college's fault. We had only ourselves to blame, or more accurately, we had only one another to blame, and unfortunately, that's exactly how that played out. It's fascinating, isn't it, how we humans seem to have a need almost to create borders, boundaries, margins, inside of which all the people are good, and outside of which all the people are bad. There's us, yay, and then there's them, boo. I just gave you an example of that from my own personal life, but really we see it everywhere. Just 2 days ago, I was looking at Yahoo News, and I noticed that I think it was the Spanish soccer team at the World Cup lost, and someone was blaming the goalie's girlfriend for that loss. And I'm not quite sure how that works, but we can talk about that some other time. We see it all over in politics. On a global scale, the common enemy could be the Soviet Union. If it's not the Soviet Union, it's North Korea and Iraq and Iran, or Israel or Palestine, you name it. Sometimes, even when we do have an enemy out there, that's not good enough. You can't have just one. Sometimes we need them closer to home as well. The Democrats hate the Republicans, and the Republicans hate the Democrats, and the Libertarians hate the Tea Party, and everybody hates the Greens, or something like that. You're welcome to come up with your own version of that, and I'm sure you can. The point is that there appears to be a need, a bondage to a need almost, to the idea that as long as there's a them out there, then we are okay. They bear the guilt while we remain innocent. And very frequently, we don't even know that we're doing it. I see something similar happening in our gospel text for today. Here we encounter a man who's possessed by demons. We don't know much about the demons, except that there's a whole mess of them. Legion, they're called. What's interesting, well, there are a lot of interesting things about the story, but one of the things that really jumps out at me is this. I don't know about you, but if I learn of a person who's demon-possessed in my community, I sure would like it if he would stay as far away from me as possible. Wouldn't that be nice? But that's not what happens in this gospel text. The text tells us that the man breaks his chains and the demons drive him out into the wilderness from time to time. And then the community goes and they gather him again, they put him in chains and place a guard over him. Why on earth do they do that? Why don't they just leave him in the wilderness? Maybe it's because the man in his demon possession situation is actually handy for the Gerasenes. As long as he's out there, as long as he's nearby, they have a ready suspect, an easy target of aggression. Honey, where did all our money go from the checking account? I don't know, it must have been that demon-possessed guy. Oh, hi dear, how was your day today? I was really crummy, but at least I'm not naked and living among the tombs. Isn't that a weird aspect of the story? The man's naked, living among the tombs, living literally and figuratively at the margins of Gerasene society. Exiled, but not quite entirely driven away. Excommunicated, but kept close at hand. It's kind of like a living death for him. And then Jesus arrives. Jesus casts out the man's demons, and he's found sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, in the posture of a disciple, you might say. And the Gerasenes were afraid. We can probably all attest to how frightening it can be when our usual way of doing business is interrupted. In the case of the Gerasenes, their usual way of doing business was interrupted and exposed and overturned. Jesus returns the man to life from death, to community from excommunication. And he does this not solely for the man's sake. Instead, he gives him a mission as well. When the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave the region, the man who had the demons begs to go with Jesus. But Jesus says, no, go back home and tell how much God has done for you. But he also does so for the sake of his mission, to bring good news to the poor, to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. You are freed, you are healed. Now, return to your home and declare how much God has done for you.